Welcome to the second episode of the Nesting Eagles podcast. We are coordinators from the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance Bald Eagle Nest Watch and citizen scientists. I am Drew. I'm here with my co-host Beth. How are things, Beth?
All right.
Yeah,
A little warmer than it was
yeah,
last week.
yeah. I think the weather is starting to break a little bit during the um, last week or so. And just wanted to talk a little bit. We got actually have some news. We had our training this weekend for the Bald Eagle Nest Watch. And we're going to actually officially start the program monitoring the nest February 1st that week. But I have word from one of our volunteers that we already have eggs in the nest at one of the bald eagle nests. And this is kind of a rarity. It's not typical. We have a couple nests in the program that they seem every year they're early and usually a week or two early. So that it's exciting. The process has already started. It can go really well for them or it can go really bad, depending on storms and everything. But it's kind of something that we can speculate on why they do this so early. Do you have any thoughts on that, Beth? Or what do you think? Is it?
Well, I think it's curious that they laid eggs when it has been so bitterly cold.
Yeah.
That is a surprise to me because that it's hard to keep that egg warm enough when it's bitterly cold out. But I was just thinking it could. I wonder if this was uh, the natal area for those eagles, or if maybe they were hatched somewhere further south, and that has something to do with early nesting behaviors. It'd be a curious thing to be able to know, but I don't know that we could ever know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been out to this territory a few times, and it's kind of in a marshy area with a lot of ponds. I imagine the ponds are still frozen, but there is a pretty large river in back of it, which I think stays open partially. You would think it would have to. It does get a lot of, waterfall in that area, so
Mm.
they could be preying on some other birds, some ducks and that kind of thing as well, to kind of supplement their food and their prey. So it is really interesting that they get started so early. And um, my experience with this nest, and then there's another one in the program that gets started really early about the same time. It can go really well or it can go really bad. And the reason for that is their whole calendar is set way forward, but it is extremely cold in Wisconsin in that January timeframe and into early February. And then it starts to get more like spring type weather and kind of gets a little bit warmer. So they do have the risk of where, a severe storm or severe cold can really end their season abruptly. But it seems like it's worked out for them. We'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful. They've been a pretty successful nest. So it's an interesting topic to go across because early birds, they can do really well. And
Get
but
the worm.
yep, definitely get the eaglets out of the nest and get fledging real early. So they usually fledge in May, which most of the eagles are going to fledge in June and July. A little saying that I use, and Beth has heard it many times with the trainings and everything, is eagles are a kind of a romantic bird, and they'll have eggs in the nest by Valentine's Day. And that's kind of the starting point for our area of southern Wisconsin. That's usually the set, the kind of the sweet spot for them is to start in early February up to a month time frame about March 15th. So the vast majority of the nests will have eggs either starting mid-February to mid-March. But for whatever reason, there's a few nests every year that get started earlier. And as I said, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. They don't, at the tail end, they don't have to worry about some of the extreme heats of the summer starting, which can be a problem for the eaglets getting basically baked on the nest. But it is kind of a gamble, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, and I just thought, Drew, we were just talking about it in training, because Carol and Alan were on our call, and they had that really early uh eaglet in our area, in my area.
Mhm.
So and then it was like just such a shock to
Yeah,
see this humongous bird. They only had one offspring, but we were jokingly calling it baby Huey because it looked like it should be feeding the parents, not the parents feeding it.
yeah.
But I that nest might be on the same time frame as the two of yours.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it's
they,
interesting just to go over a little bit of how the nest process goes, just so people understand. As I said, they usually lay eggs. It's a staggered process for eagles, unlike some birds where they just drop all their eggs. The female drops the eggs immediately. So what an eagle does is lays one egg. Usually a day or two later, the female will lay a second egg, and then maybe a third in the process. And then they're on incubating the eggs pretty much 24/7, especially in our area where it's very cold. So they have to keep that temperature up to keep the eggs viable. And then at, about a month, 30 to 35 days, they'll start to hatch, and they'll hatch kind of in the same way that they were laid. So you have kind of a staggered of eaglet sizes that vary, but that's kind of just to give people a time frame of how that works. So once there's a very specific time frame for the eagle season, and these earlier birds, they're going to get done earlier and get through that process, but they're incubating and brooding eaglets in significantly colder weather usually than a normal bird. So
well,
um,
our baby Huey nest, I think that was first time
yeah,
parents, or if they weren't, they moved from a nest that we weren't aware of,
yeah.
because they built the nest and then this was their first offspring. So maybe that made them early. So it'll be curious to see what they do this year.
Yeah, and it's fun to speculate. It's unfortunately we can't get in the brain. I know Beth and I we say that a lot. I just wish I could get into an eagle brain to understand what they're thinking. So, we're
Drew and
doing
I
our
spend a
best.
lot of time trying to think like an eagle and discuss with
Yeah,
each other
yeah.
what we think
So you're just trying to
might make
use your
sense.
education and the behaviors to try to figure out what's going on there. This is pure speculation for us, but it is a fun thing to do for sure.
Mhm.
All right, Beth, let's talk a little bit about our organization
Sure.
that we volunteer for. We're volunteers for the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance. They're based out of Madison, Wisconsin, and they um, they do the surrounding counties of Madison, but there is outreach, especially with programs like the Bald Eagle Nest Watch, and they also do a Kestrel program that kind of reaches farther than those. I believe it's 8 counties that they usually do for programs and walks and talks and all that stuff. But we kind of expand that as well throughout a lot of Wisconsin with programs like Bald Eagle Nest Watch. They do a lot of work with land management, and they have several properties that are absolutely beautiful. And you can check it out. The website is swibirds.org, and we're on there too. If you go under, I think it's Get Involved. We're under the citizen science area there. So check out the website, and they do a lot of great things for birds and for humans as well, and walks and talks. So if you're interested, take a look. Anything you want to add, Beth, to?
No, they're just a wonderful group of people, and they do a lot of online classes and various interests for people. So you can always learn about something new if you're curious about it. A lot of Zoom
Yeah,
presentations. So they're a wonderful organization, and I'm really glad you brought the program to them for the Bald Eagle Nest Watch, and that we're able to do what we're doing.
yeah, they're a great partner. They also do educational stuff around the Madison area too. Go into the classrooms and teach kids about birds and other fun topics. I know a lot of times they do, like, which is a little fun little game, is you get nuggets of owl poop and dissect and stuff like that. They
It's
do.
called a pellet, Drew.
Okay, a pellet. Yes, technically a pellet, but yeah, it's fun little activities like that and activities. So feel free to check that out. And as I said, we fall under their management, and they've been amazing people to help us. And Brenna is our main contact there for the Bald Eagle Nest Watch and a lot of other different programs. So
And we could not do this without her. I mean,
yes, yes,
boy, she
yes, she
just
does.
all
She
the
does the
technical
work.
stuff, all the online stuff, and is just a huge support for all of these zillions of volunteers and answers their questions as well.
And keeps us on task because Beth and I tend to head off
Talk about
and
Eagles.
yeah. So yeah, she keeps us on task, which is good. So
Not an easy thing to do. Thank you,
yeah.
Brent.
Also,
And
I
at the end of
have
this, we should put their under comments, we'll put their
yes.
contact information. So if anyone wants to check them out online.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. And again, if you want to contact us, we are Nesting Eagles Podcast at gmail.com. We're trying to we're slowly working our getting our social medias up. So look for that. X and all those fun ones, Facebook. So we're slowly working on that. So keep an eye out for us on there as well. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. We'd love to answer any questions you might have on that. And actually, I have a surprise co-host for you, Beth, that
Uh-oh.
I wanted to pull out.
I think I know.
This is George. The story behind George is I'm actually out in Washington now. So for leave when I left, let me see. I'll try to keep him on. Try to keep him
Turn him in
on.
profile.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah,
There
I'll
he
put it
is.
right on my computer. There you go. He's trying to eat me. But so this is a gift, a going away present from Beth. And thank you, Beth. This guy traveled across country. I was with my dog and my oldest son, and we visited national parks and everything. So it was fun thing we took photos with him at all the national parks and stuff. So that was a
Drew
fun
was
spot. Yeah.
sending Ken and I, my husband, photos of George at different
Yeah, yeah.
monuments. So
So we named him George. We thought it was appropriate since we were going out to, Washington State, our first president. So I think it was fitting that we named him George. So he will pop in and out of the pods from here and there. So, and maybe I'll bring him out. We might be doing some more adventures in Washington State and around. So he's always usually around with us. So he's
it
always
was very hard to paint him as a juvenile.
yeah.
You want to go straight for that white head and white tail, but I'm like, no, it's got to be a nestling.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that, like the spotting and everything. It does
Yeah.
good representation of a first year eagle, and that's what we're going to be seeing, later on in the year, and hopefully see a lot of them fledge too. So let's talk a little bit about eagle etiquette. It kind of rang true with us because we were training our new volunteers on that. And Beth, you want to talk a little bit about eagle etiquette and the do's and don'ts around an eagle nest for us?
Well, I mean, for the most part, I try to stay in my car, which it's definitely true. Your vehicle makes a great bird blind. You're less of a threat to any raptor if you're in your car. You don't want to be too close. 300, is it 300 feet, 320
Yeah,
feet?
I think it's like is it three? I think it's 333 is the recommended distance away. And
And if you're on the side of the road and the road
yeah,
is closer than that, so then fine, snap a couple pictures, take a look, and keep on moving. There's no need to sit too close to any wild bird and freak it out. Certainly, Drew and I have talked about this before. We've both done it, and I did it recently, even this past week. Uh, I live near Geneva Lake, and we, for the first time ever, had roosting bald eagles in droves on a lake. I counted probably, at least 30 bald eagles on our lake altogether. We do have nesting pairs around the lake, but this was none of our eagles. So as the as it got colder here and lakes further north were freezing, eagles come in search of open water. And so we were going to be doing tallies of how many roosting eagles we were seeing along the lake. And we were in a grove of oak trees, and my husband and I walked through it to walk over to the lakefront where we knew there were some sitting in trees, and we blushed
Yeah.
sadly. Um, 4 or 5 roosting eagles, which is not what you want to do in cold weather because they're trying to stay warm and conserve their energy. And they'll tuck down their talons on a branch. They'll squat down over them to keep them warm because they're going to lose most of their heat out of their feet and their beaks. So I felt really horrible,
Yeah.
and neither one of us saw them at all. They just,
Yeah.
in that craggly oak tree, they just blended right in.
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to get across is, try to keep your distance, use optics, binoculars, spotting scopes, cameras with long zoom lenses is preferred, but we all make mistakes. My story there is I was actually at one of the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance properties. And I had heard that there was a snowy, especially in Wisconsin and some other areas. When we get them coming down, it's really exciting to see these beautiful Arctic birds. So I was looking for it. I jumped out of my car. I parked it on the side of the road and was heading down one of the trails. Very excited and like giddy that, oh, I might be able to see a snowy. And for whatever reason, I forgot my sunglasses. Very snowy. It was very sunny that day. And I'm like, I walked back to my car and I looked at a pole right over top of my car and there was a snowy there. So I felt
Hmm.
I don't to this day I don't know if it was there when I parked or if it came in later, but either way I felt terrible. Snapped some shots of it and spent a little time with it and tried to keep a distance, but eventually I had to get in my car and drove off slowly so I wouldn't disturb the owl. But we all do it, but try to do your best to especially in the early season for the eagles and for other birds. Try not to disturb them, give them their due distance, especially right now where it's extremely cold. They're a bird that kind of you know they they're good at managing their heat and their energy, because they are larger birds. They're not like chickadees and whatnot that pretty much have to eat nonstop to survive. So they're pretty. A lot of times you'll find them perched when it's really cold out. So just use that as a lesson, and we all do it, but we try to do the best to
The,
kind of not disturb them.
the really bad part is if you is in particular with like nesting bald eagles or nesting owls or
Yeah,
nesting raptors. I I love to have a picture of robins on eggs and that kind of stuff, but you're stressing the bird out.
yeah,
With eagles, if you stress them enough, they're going to leave the nest and they're going to leave the eggs behind, and that nest just went, it just failed
yeah,
because the eagles came off the nest because they were stressed by your presence. And if they're off the nest for too long, then the eggs will die. They'll freeze. So we've had that happen where we had, somebody cutting up a tree on an adjacent property, and I've seen people walk too close to the nest and kind of freak out. Um, a eaglet that was getting close to fledging but still wasn't at fledging, and it ended up I think under duress flying into the road. And this
yeah,
person said, well, if I wasn't here it could have gotten hit by a car because I had to get it back off the road. And then the question is, why did it end up on the road in the first place?
yeah,
And so those are really those are things we don't want to see, because stressing out that young eagle is you know we don't know what kind of effect that has on them. So we want them to have as we do enough harm to birds in our areas with lead shot and lead lures and hooks and automobiles.
Yeah.
We hit raptors all the time, so let's give them their space at their nest so that we don't cause yet another issue for them.
Yeah, because they're obviously it's very exciting. This is what we do. We love watching eagles and nests. We love watching eagles, period. And you get excited, but just keep that in your mind. Have a little etiquette and keep back for them. There's also a lot of signs. We teach our volunteers this as well during the training. If you see them kind of fluff up and get the eagle death stare, it's probably an indication if there's nothing else around and they're looking at you that you maybe be too close. So kind of take a step back and slowly move back. Or if if they take flight, that's definitely a sign. And then, as I said, if they're puffing up and vocalizing is another one. So just keep an eye out for that if you are interacting with eagles and also other birds like owls and other things. Try to keep
And
your distance.
keep in mind that, they're all very visually oriented. And so when you have binoculars up to your eyes or a long lens of a camera, that to them looks like a big
Yeah, it
eyeball.
looks like you're
Yeah.
bug-eyed. Yeah,
And you're looking directly at them
yeah.
or their, you know, nestlings in the nest. And, just as you as a parent of a child would be put off by someone staring at your child, and you might feel like, you need to get out of wherever you're at because possibly your child is in danger. That is, probably not dissimilar from what they're thinking. Um they don't want to be the focus of your attention.
Yeah, and they definitely, you can tell they know you're there way before you know they are there.
I know that
Yeah,
at nests that I've been watching for
yeah,
years that they know my vehicle. They
yeah,
know
they
the
do.
sound of my vehicle.
Yeah,
Um, they know it's me. The only thing I know they don't like to see me. And the only thing I have going for me is I've never tried to get close to their nest or harm their young ones, so I think I'm tolerated.
yeah.
And that's the best I can hope for.
And that's kind of what we do with the nest watches. We want to make sure. And then if we come across people out at a lot of these nests are pretty high traffic where they're in parks where everybody knows about them, and we try to educate the general public on the do's and don'ts. And you also want to keep a fairly quiet too. They're not a big fan of barking dogs and yelling and that kind of stuff too. That can irritate them as well. So we just want to give them a little bit of respect, give them the space, especially this time of year. They're ultra sensitive because they haven't started the season. They don't have a whole lot invested. As they go through the season, they have more and more invested when they have eggs, and then when they have eaglets, they're going to tolerate a little more activity. Um, but right now, it's like, well, if I'm going to get bothered all the time and disturbed, they might abandon the nest, and nobody wants that. That's a
Yeah.
bummer. All right, let's talk a little bit about kind of sort of linked to eagle etiquette, and that's is kind of humanizing eagles and their behavior and their personalities and stuff like that. We've seen a lot of it recently. If you do um, fall nest cams and other things, and we've had to do that here as well as coordinators. It's not an easy process. I'll just kind of go through some of the things we have and kind of our guidelines, I guess, of what we do, because the general public, especially, likes to voice their concern and like, why aren't they helping these eagles, and what's going on? Why aren't they doing anything? Why aren't they climbing the nest? And it's not an easy process, and it's not an easy decision. The rule of thumb is if there is something in the nest that's happening naturally, like sibling rivalry is a big one, or some sort of sickness or anything, we just leave it to nature. It's kind of, we can't really get involved in situations like that. If there is a situation where it's more um, human caused, because sometimes you see it, we've seen that in some of the nest cams, and we see it a little bit, not a ton, fortunately. is, something, a fish line or a piece of garbage gets stuck on a throat of an eaglet or on their foot or whatever. We also had one in the watch. Fortunately, it got off, but one of the fledglings had um, perched on a tree and likely got tangled with some fish line and was dragging this branch around, could fly, but had it stuck to its leg. And fortunately, it looked like it finally got it off, but that can be a problem. So stuff like that, in situations like that, we want to get involved. The other main thing, and Beth, you can talk about this as well, is like if an eagle is able to fly, it's almost
Yeah.
impossible to catch them. So in those situations where you'd like to rehab them, that there's a nest, one of the nest cams out in Catalina Island. One of the males, the nesting male, got attacked by another male, probably trying to take over the territory and take that female and take that breeding area. Got hurt pretty bad. There's just not a whole lot you can do in those situations, so it's more laid to nature. And I think people need to understand that these are wild animals and they're not easy to catch unless
There's a
they're real sick or
yeah.
real injured. They're not easy to catch at all.
There's a desire to help, and it's nice that people do care and want to help, but not only can you not catch an eagle or any bird that has flight, um, there isn't necessarily staff to do a lot of that stuff. And climbing and getting access to a bald eagle's nest requires a lot of approvals, which Drew handles a
Yeah.
lot of that with his contacts. But we have gone into the nest to like retrieve an eaglet body when we were sure avian flu was taking out 50% and plus of our nests. But you can't prove it until you have a body to test. But that tree happened to be a maple tree, so
Mhm.
it was climbable. But you climbing a white pine is
No,
not
not easy. Yeah.
possible, and you could never get around the rim to the nest. So getting cherry pickers and getting all of these things out of the site costs a lot of money, and there are now a lot of nests. And just like with that robin nest that gets predated by a raccoon, and it's unfortunate, but it's part of the cycle of life. The same is true for eagle nests and raptor nests. We have one right now that's sort of leaning sideways. The tree is, and
Yeah.
the two eagles are in it. They're preparing for the nesting season. So we're all fingers crossed that, the tree doesn't fall completely down before the season is over, but we have no control over it. And you can't put a tree back upright.
Yeah.
And as much as you think you can communicate with eagles, you can't, and you can't tell them to get a new home. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to take the risks that they feel, they're calculated to take.
Yeah, it's a tough process, and I would just like people to kind of understand from our side and from a lot of these, these groups that do have nest cams. It's not an easy process, and they feel the pain too. It's just in a lot of cases, it's not feasible. Climbing trees it's very difficult. And a lot of these trees, especially if it's a dead tree, we had an incident that actually Beth was involved with the rescue. We had two, well, we thought we had just one eaglet, but
It was
unfortunately,
a nest of three
yeah, it
originally.
was a nest of three. And then there was we had at least one. We thought the other one had perished because the adults were not coming to feed them. The volunteers had not seen them in quite a while, and we made the call, and I consulted a number of the DNR and rehabbers that I
Rehabber.
respect, and we decided to try to rescue this eaglets. We ended up miraculously finding a second one on the ground that Beth had a big experience in that and locating that one. So, but that's an exception, and it was a situation where the adults were obviously had died from something, later
Probably it
on.
could have been avian flu, but it had
Yeah,
to get
I
back to the
think,
nest.
our best guess was that it was some sort of rat poison or
Mm,
something they got into, some sort of poisoning. So that was, in that case, that was more human driven. That the adults had died and were no longer, and we had these eaglets kind of just slowly dying because nobody was feeding them. They're in this big nest getting baked by the sun. So that was kind of
and tons of biting flies, man. They had
yeah,
tons of biting flies.
yeah. So that's a that was a
The
unique
one
one.
eaglet had no flight feathers, and
Yeah.
it leapt from the top of that nest to just be anywhere else but in
Yeah.
that nest, which left one remaining in the nest. And then that tree again was somewhat climbable because it was, I forget what kind of a tree, if it was a sycamore or a
Yeah,
big
it
root, but
was
it
some
was a
sort of
deciduous
evergreen.
tree.
Yeah, yeah. But
Um, and fortunately, the arborists, the tree was dead. It was looking like we were going to fail at getting the eaglet out. And then one of the arborists just said, "No, I think I can do something to get it."
yeah.
And fortunately, he caught it in the nest before it jumped. But the one that jumped, amazingly, didn't have any broken bones, so it ended up being very worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely a best case scenario. And then those went to a rehabber and was released. So huge success for the program and for everybody and Beth and everybody that was involved in that rescue. So, but that's really an exception to the rule. A lot of it we just try to, keep it to nature unless it's one of those situations where it's real rare. So, and just to keep that in mind that, there's a lot of things going on and it would be great for us to rescue all of them, but, we got to leave it to nature in a lot of cases. It's just not, it's
It's
not
not
feasible.
financially
Yeah.
feasible.
Yeah.
It's not people feasible. There, I getting an I was fortunate to know some arborists that were willing to help us for no fee, and and bless them for that. That
Yeah.
arborists will do favors for us, but it has to be a winnable situation for us, because some things you just can't do. They're just physically impossible.
Yeah, so it's tough. It weighs on me. There's been some other situations where it's like, we can't do anything. It's a naturally occurring event. So a lot of them are also, if the nest is preyed on, if it's not, if the adults are not defending the nest well enough, other creatures like great horned owls or some mammals, raccoons or whatnot, crows, will come up and, take the eggs or take the eaglets, and there's just nothing we can do about in that process. So
Well, I don't even know that we should bring this up, but I don't think you and I have ever talked about it. It was a Florida cam, I believe. I could be wrong, but there were two instances last year where young males were now nesting with female bald eagles, and the first eggs had hatched. In two cases, the young male parent of the hatched egg consumed the baby.
yeah.
So they didn't recognize their own offspring. And so, that's, there's a learning curve. Those birds know that there's a learning curve and they're not going to be 100% successful every year. It's just part of the reality of living in nature.
Yeah, I mean, the instincts that they have to breed and to incubate and all that is important, but what they learn in the process as well. That's why you don't the younger birds tend to not have as many eaglets.
Make more
Um,
mistakes. Yeah.
yeah, and make mistakes. So it's part of the process, and they learn. And just, a lot of the nests, for whatever reason, have just lousy luck, and you see that as well. And we've seen that. There's some nests that we have in our program. We're like, God, I wish these guys would get a break. It's just they always get hit with the winter storms at the wrong time or whatever happens, or the nest comes down. It's just There's one in particular I'm thinking of that's, the nest has come down. We lost eaglets that time because they fell, and we rescued them, but they were just too far gone, too many broken bones. And also, this same nest got hit by lightning the year before. It's like, it's just like, what? It's just crazy how bad luck they get. But
Was that an oak tree that they were in?
yeah, I think it was definitely off the top of my head. It was an oak or something. It was definitely a hardwood tree, but I don't recall what it was.
Because we had the one hit in our area,
Yeah,
that they were chicks being fed in the nest. We didn't ever get to see how many, but it got hit by lightning, and
yeah,
it is also an oak tree. And then I looked online and I Googled what tree gets hit most often by
yeah.
lightning, and it's oak trees. So
Yeah, because and it makes sense that they a lot of them, a fair amount get that have nests get hit just because that's what eagles like. They like those tall trees, and a lot of times they're out on their own too, where they're the tallest tree or in a small grove of trees, and that's just prime, lightning strikes are going to hit that tree just purely on that it's the tallest tree in that area. So it happens, and it's unfortunate, but it's
and then the thing that happened at the nest by us, was I think the male was sitting incubating brooding the chicks in the nest, and two eagles flew in and consumed the adults and
yeah,
the babies. And that sounds really brutal, because we don't do that with our offspring, but that's a valuable resource that wasn't wasted,
yeah.
and you have to view it in that kind of a way. So Drew and I might sound kind of morbid at times, but that is the reality of nature.
Yeah, and that's a probably a good transition to what we wanted to talk to as well is
Something happy.
yeah, a lot of people, and it's easy for us too. I mean, we have these nests, and we've watched them for many years, and there's a lot of emotional attachment to these nests that we do, and it is hard, and I understand when people have time invested either in monitoring a nest, or they're watching eagle cams, and something devastating happens. It's tough, but the one thing you got to understand that these are wild animals. They don't have the feelings that we have. You hear a lot of times where for whatever reason the eaglets die, and the adults are kind of hanging out near the nest, and people are talking about how they're mourning and stuff like that, and it's just not the case. And a lot of they're probably just thinking about their next meal, like where am I
Yeah.
going to find a fish? I feel like I should be on the nest doing something, but because their instincts and their hormones are still kicking in, but they're really trying to survive in the wild, and it's a hard process for any animals, to be honest. And
And the
um,
interesting thing on that topic is the fact that they're sitting there by the side of the nest, like Drew was saying, and they're hormonally driven, they're seasonally driven. And I work volunteer as a raptor handler too, and staff, I would say, but they were off it for over a day, and now they've come back and they were incubating again this morning. And staff was like, hey, those hormones that are coursing through their blood are really drive a set pattern of behavior. And even though the nest failed, and the eagles understand that it failed this time of year, they should be on the nest, so they kept returning to the nest. So it helps when you are able to talk to people who know substantially more than you about eagle behavior, to help to explain sometimes why you know um, it- they continue to try to hatch the eggs that are never going to hatch, and they know they're never going to hatch.
Yeah, and you definitely see that with a lot of the domesticated birds and eagles. There's still that itch, and you might go to a zoo or a rehabber, or a center like the Eagle Center is one of them, and they're getting hit with these hormones as well to breed and to do all that nesting, and it's, it's kind of ingrained in them to do that. So that's where you get those stories. I think was it last year, Beth, the one that the eagle that was incubating
Yeah,
the rock. Yeah.
the rock, yeah.
Yeah. So
It
you get
wasn't
stories
even
like,
a rock that was shaped like an egg. It was a
yeah, yeah. So
wonky rock.
you get that, and I think if you've visited some zoos, like they have those sites that too they get that itch to nest, and you'll see them kind of doing some of the behaviors that we see in the wild, just because instinctively it's like, yeah, it's time to breed. I should be doing this. So that's the case. And then, just to take it where to take the emotion out of it. One thing, just a quick story that I do. And I've told Beth this before. I really, really don't like naming eagles. And I know why they do it. It is fun to do that, but actually the only time I named an eagle, I called her Bella because she was kind of a rare case where one of the nests that I watched, she was exactly in typically the female is quite a bit bigger than the male. And at this particular nest, they were actually the same size. So I just my best guess, I don't know this for sure, but a lot of the southern birds are smaller than our northern birds. So I just called her, Southern Belle, and that was her nickname for me. And unfortunately, she died that season. So, it was like the kiss of death. So I try not to like name them. I try to kind of act like, more scientific in that. And I understand that there's a lot of motions you can put on these birds. And, I've always, you know, thinking,
Resisted.
yeah, resisted that and kind of trying to keep it more towards the science and tell myself over and over again, these are wild animals and they don't have that type of feelings or emotions that we do as humans. So,
Ken and
um,
I had a koi pond where we had these great koi that would come up and eat out of our hands, and we
yeah,
named them, and a raccoon got the ones
yeah,
that. So it was like it
yeah,
picked out those specific ones, and yeah, so we
yeah.
stopped naming anything.
So I'm not trying to have people not name them if they enjoy doing that. It's just it's kind of one of my holdups in that. It's just they try to do this more scientific and try to, it's impossible to keep emotions out because, especially for instance, we mentioned this on the first episode, is like in 2022 where our nests were absolutely getting devastated by avian flu. And we were just losing eaglets and getting nests fail and also losing a few adults as well. It's not easy to separate those emotions, but we try. We are citizen science. We're not full blown scientists, so but we try to do that, keep the emotions out of it. But it's tough at sometimes. So and I was glad after that year, I think we talked about this, Beth, is I wasn't sure if we're gonna have any volunteers come back because
Yeah,
that's rough. That's rough
I
to
know the
invest.
WDNR did not think I was coming back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have, to sit and watch these nests and to get to know these birds on a pretty good level, because we stay out there at least an hour, hour a week for several months, to get to know these birds and to have them be devastated by this virus was a tough one for sure. So
Yeah, it really was, and yeah, I lost almost all of my nests. I was watching a, a huge number of them because it was the first year that we had really had nesting bald eagles in Milwaukee County, which was a big
yeah,
deal. And so we lost all of the young in those nests, and it was really hard because there were people involved in, neighbors, and there was one nest where the family was so excited they had telescopes and stuff set out so they could watch this nest way far back of their property, and they had been hatched for maybe 3 weeks, and they um, texted me to let me know that they just saw the one of the adults dropping food from up above, and it's like, oh, you don't do that in a nest of 3-week-old chicks.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh shoot, I think they're gone because I think what the adult was probably doing, because it was seen on nest cams, was picking up the young and dropping them, trying
Yeah.
to get them to react and do something because they were dying and there was no way to shake them out of it.
Yeah, and we saw that quite a bit. I heard that over and over again. They were kind of in the net, they were near the nest, kind of keep an eye on it, but they were as confused as we were what was going on because, they don't have that intellect to really understand what's going on. They were just doing what their instincts and their um past years what to do. But these eaglets were just getting devastated and by this virus. So
And they don't perish right away. It takes a couple days,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's not a I'm sure a pleasant thing to be going through. But
mhm,
and then it's just terrible to tell the neighbors,
yeah,
their kids are watching this and they're all excited thinking that there
yeah,
was a food drop, and it's you can't drop food on a 3-week-old chick. It just
yeah.
that's bad parenting in itself. So yeah, it was really that's hard to let them know.
Yeah, so I completely relate to a lot of people that add names and add kind of human elements to their eagles or whatever wildlife they're watching. But it can be tough, and we kind of have to relate as far as rehabbing them and rescuing them and stuff like that. There's a lot going on, so it's not as easy as if you see a human in distress, you're gonna call an ambulance or whatever. It's not as an easy process. So and we don't take it lightly. We're thinking about that process and when it happens. It's tough. It's tough, because most of the times when we rescue, I'd say the vast majority, it doesn't go well. So we've had some really, for instance, that nest we mentioned that we rescued those eaglets. That was a good one. And Beth has rescued some that were down on the ground that came out okay, that weren't but most of the time, if something happens out at the nests, it's they're falling out of a nest 80 feet up in the air and don't know how to fly yet or whatever, or have some sort of virus or injured. It usually doesn't go well, and it's most likely that they're not going to make it. So, but it's a hard process. We're thinking about it. So just something to think about before you scream that, hey, why aren't they acting
They
on?
should get up there rescuing,
Yeah,
and you just can't.
yeah, because there's a lot more that goes into it than just trying to rescue everything. It's just there's a lot of factors involved in that. So
And as a sidebar to this, I know this isn't something we're discussing today, but I just to say it out loud is we Drew and I couldn't do what we do, nor could our 500 plus volunteers do what they're doing if we didn't have the cooperation of homeowners and business owners who have shared with us their nests and trust us that we aren't going to make it public, and that we're gonna hold their relationship as very critical and important to us and to the success of the Eagles. But we just know fabulous, fabulous people who are in this with us, even though they're not officially nest watchers. Those of us who do photographs, we share our photographs with them because we appreciate them opening up their homes to us in many cases to let us have access to the bald eagles. So thank you to all of those of you who we cannot name
yeah,
because
yeah, the
we
landowners and
do that to you.
volunteers, yeah, that without them, and we don't have a program, obviously, because
Right.
we have to watch these nests from the ground, and it's just not feasible without their kindness to allow us kind of on their properties or whatever. It's very important. So
From a homeowner to
yeah,
large corporations,
yeah,
we almost are never told no,
yeah, which is
and
it's
we
amazing.
appreciate it.
It's amazing. Yeah. So and let's end on a little bit of a kind of a fun thing, just so we we've talked about death and eagle death and
This was kind of
rehab.
a bummer.
Yeah, so um, I guess let's start with this. Beth, you're headed to a trip pretty soon, but
Yep.
what is your fantasy bird or one of them that you would want to see out in the wild and kind of on your list of things to do that you would really want to see?
Well, I'd love to see it in the wild, but it's, I don't want to have to afford to make it happen anymore. But my husband and I were recently in Costa Rica, and I really wanted to see a harpy eagle.
Yeah.
And we were with a niece, and we had hired a watcher, a
Yeah.
guide,
Yeah.
and he had seen a harpy himself, and they were in. And then our niece works in the field of biology, and so she had seen one as well. So we had two people with us who had seen a harpy eagle, but we thought for sure that karma would be working for us, but it
Yeah.
did not. But we did see a crested eagle, which was really thrilling to see, along with, you know,
Yeah.
quetzals and all sorts of really cool birds. So it's hard to say any one bird, but I am pretty fascinated by the harpy eagle.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Harpies are, I think we're very alike in that we like birds of prey and everything. But mine right now is the spoonbill. I've seen a lot of them in the zoos, and we go down to south to Florida a few times. I have three kids, so do the Disney thing and Universal and all that. But I really want to see a spoonbill out in the wild, kind of doing their thing with their crazy looking beak, kind of foraging. They're just a fun bird and beautiful bird, and with all the pink and all the
Yeah,
different colors and stuff. So I think that's definitely one of mine. And then if I could, that stellar eagle, and I don't know if it's still around, but
it is.
yeah,
I've seen
it's
a
crazy.
couple of
Yeah,
reports on it.
because I've seen that bird in the zoo, and just to see the sheer size, like a bald eagle, as most of you are aware, is a pretty big bird. It's one of our biggest, especially predators, raptor birds. But that the stellar eagles, you see photographers when it's tending to hang out with bald eagles, because they're both fish eagles, but it's just massive. It just dwarfs a very large bird and a bald eagle, and it's just like it'd be really cool to see that. But um,
Well, let's
someday,
plan a trip to Japan.
yeah, yeah, in their natural habitat would probably
Yeah.
be better than chasing this bird that got stuck somehow in North America and Canada and Maine and Texas
The
or
weather
where it was. But
patterns get so
yeah, it's
crazy,
been
and we had flamingos in Wisconsin. I mean,
yeah, that was
I would have loved to have seen them. The
yeah, yeah,
people had incredible photos of them,
yeah.
but yeah, I've never seen a flamingo other than in a zoo. But I have
Yeah,
seen a
me too.
spoonbill.
Yeah,
So, and they are those red eyes and
yeah,
that gray beak and it has like a round shaped bottom of the beak that's flat like a paddle, and it is you just stare at them and you're like, oh man, just the interesting way birds have developed over time, how evolution has affected them
yeah.
for their specialties and what they eat. They're just really
Yeah,
fascinating.
they're really cool. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, unless you have something else, Beth, you mentioned.
Well, always too much, Drew.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully everybody is enjoying. Again, hit that like button, subscribe button. That way you'll get notifications when we do this. We'll continue to do that through the season, and hopefully you like we're doing. And again, email us if you have any suggestions for topics or have any questions you want answered. Feel free to do that at Nesting Eagles Podcast at gmail.com, and then hopefully get back and be able to answer your questions. But um, we're having a blast, and hopefully you like this. And till next time,
And
Beth.
as we get going, eventually we'll add someone else into the mix with us.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So we have plans for having some guests. We both have quite a extensive Rolodex, I guess, of people in the Eagle world. So we'll definitely be bringing some people on to kind of share their thoughts about bald eagles and other eagles. So thanks again, and we'll see you hopefully in episode 3. Beth is going away for a little while, but after that, we'll get back at it. So we appreciate it, and have a great day.
bye bye.